Today we're covering section 9.6, and it is the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So converse is another word for reverse, okay? If you remember section 9.2, in section 9.2, we learned Pythagorean theorem. Can you guys tell me that formula? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we had to solve for an unknown side length. Well, today we're going to take that and work it in reverse. All right, but before we do that, this part's not in your notes, so I just want you guys to participate along with me. All right, and this is also going to help you on your quiz on Friday to know this information. So I need to classify the numbers. Are they rational or irrational? And I need to provide the category. So if it's a rational number, what kind of rational number? All right, so let's start off with the square root of 144. Well, in order to determine if it's rational or not, what is the square root of 144? 12. What kind of number is 12? It's rational. Okay? More specifically, what kind of rational number? It's a whole number. What else?
Integer.
It's an integer. What else?
Natural.
It's a natural number.
I only got rational and whole number. I don't even know how
Okay, well, it's also an integer though. So it can be multiple categories. On your homework last night, you were supposed to choose all that apply. So there were multiple categories that some numbers fell into. Remember, a whole number and a natural number is the same thing. The only difference is that a whole number can be 0. A natural number cannot.
That's what you meant.
Okay? All right. So now, next one. The cubed root of 200. So again, I need to ask myself, can I evenly take the cubed root of 200? Is it one of my perfect cubes? All right. If you don't have them memorized, it's going to be a pure guess for you. Is 200 a perfect cube? No, it is not. So this number is irrational. And I can say, because it's nothing. If it's irrational, it's not a perfect cube. It's not a perfect cube. All right, which makes it non-terminating and non-repeating. All right, what about the last one? Rational or irrational?
Rational.
It is rational. Remember, repeating decimals are rational numbers. It's rational because it's a repeating decimal. Okay? You will be asked on your quiz to approximate, Rome. Okay, to approximate a square root. So 29 is not a perfect square, but it's really close to what perfect square? Gavin, what do you think? 29 is really close to what perfect square? Very good, 25. So the square root of 29 is really close to the square root of 25, which is 5. Now, yesterday, we also started approximating to the nearest tenth. And remember, when we approximate, does our answer have to be exact? No. Okay, so does anybody want to give it a shot? Okay, what would be the nearest tenth? What do you guys think, Rome?
Thinking like 6.1.
That would not be correct. Okay, 6.1, because that number would have to be above 36. So like 37, that would be 6.1. But it was the square root of 29. All right, that's what I'm approximating to the 10th. Cade, what do you think?
5.4.
Okay, 5.4. I was thinking 5.3 or 5.4. Would 5.1 be correct? No. Okay, so think about it this way. How many units is 29 above 25?
4.
It's 4 units up, right? So I wouldn't say 5.1. That would be like 26. I wouldn't say 5.9 because that would mean that number is almost 36. So that would be like 35. So I'd say 5.3 or 5.4. All right, and again, it's an approximation. You have a homework problem that asks you to approximate tonight. Okay? All right, so now let's talk about the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. It sounds super fancy. It sounds really complicated, but the actual concept really is not. Okay? Let's say our formula together, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If that equation is true for the side lengths, then the triangle is a right triangle. So what we see in example 1 is we see two triangles, but they don't have that box. You guys remember the box that's used for the right angle? Here's why. Because you are proving if it's a right triangle. If there was a box there, there's nothing to prove. All right, so you have to decide which numbers get plugged in to which place in your formula. There's a clue that we learned in 9.2 that helps me figure out the hypotenuse. Now, don't be deceived by what you think is the right angle. There's another rule that's going to be my foolproof way to tell. Does anybody remember how the length of the hypotenuse will compare to the other sides? What did we say? It's the longest side in the triangle. The hypotenuse, right, Gavin, is the longest side in the triangle. So which side would be my C? It's 41. Okay, so you're going to plug in because 41 is the longest side. The longest side gets plugged in for C. It's 9, 41, and 40. 41 is the longest side. Okay? All right, so now does it matter which one you plug in for A or B? Colin. Okay? 9 squared plus 40 squared. Now here's where you might have to do some math by hand. Okay? And you say, well, what in the world? What's the point of that? Well, if you don't practice a skill, what happens? You lose it, okay? So you learned how to multiply numbers back in like 4th or 5th grade, probably, several years ago. But if we don't practice that skill, and we're not going to come into pre-algebra and say, all right, guys, today we're practicing multiplication tables. It has to be in another concept. So we're solving to prove a right triangle, but we're also practicing our multiplication tables. Do you need to multiply 9 by 9, though? You know 9 times 9, 81. What is the mental math trick for squaring 40? Okay, not add 1 0, but add 2 zeros. So square 4 and then double the number of zeros. Okay, so 1600 equals, now for 41, you're probably going to have to do that one by hand. It's not a bad thing. It's good to practice our skills. 41 times 41. I want you to go ahead and do that multiplication before I show you the answer. Okay, so 41 times 41, 1, 4, 0, 4, and 16. All right, so that's a quick multiplication. Did you guys get 1681? No. So that's going to be an area where you would potentially make a mistake. You've got to multiply correctly. So 1681. Now I have to add the left side. What's 81 plus 1600? 1681. So both sides equal out. So yes, these side lengths form a right triangle. You have to have work here. So these side lengths do form a right triangle. Let's test it on the next one now. I want you guys to try to plug in the values into your formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Which values get plugged in for A and B? Which one plugs in for C? All right, go ahead and try to plug in those numbers. What number did you plug in for A? 12. Anybody do 18? All right, it could have been 12 or 18. What number did you plug in for C? Come on, guys. What number did you plug in? 24. So now we're going to do the math. 12 squared is 144. 18 squared, you may have to do that by hand. Did anybody remember it? Did anybody remember? We've done that one. What is it? It is 324. Okay. Now, 24 squared, you're probably going to have to do that by hand. So just 24 times 24. Oops, not a 5. So you get 1696. Should take you less than a minute to do that multiplication. So you get 576. Now what is 144 plus 324? You have no calculator. You got to do it by hand. What is it?
468.
468. Very good. So 468. Does that equal 576?
No.
Put a line through the equal sign and say no. Now here's the downside. If you solve this, but you do the math wrong, let's say you have different numbers in your equation and you still say no, just because you said no doesn't mean it's right. So you have to have your totals correct. That's why the work is important. On the homework, it's going to say explain your answer. This is your explanation. Your work is your explanation. Okay, so you might have images or you might just have the side links listed. But this does not mean that the side links are in order of A, B, C. So let's start off with our formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I want you to plug in the numbers. What do you think goes in for A, B, and C? What value, somebody raise your hand and tell me, what value did you plug in for C?
28.
28. Did you do 28? 28 is the longest. So 28 squared, 20 squared, and 21 squared. All right, so we have 400 plus, what did you get when you did 21 times 21? 441. All right, now you guys finish. What is 28 times 28? All right, give you a couple more seconds to finish that. Colin, what did you get? 28 times 28. Why did you guess? Okay, I need you to do the multiplication. Right off to the side, you need to do 28 times 28. Josh, what did you get?
441.
No, 28 times 28. The 28 squared. All right, Talila, what'd you get?
784.
All right, do you guys agree with her? 784. 28 times 28. If you did not do this, you need to do it right now. All right, I've asked you guys to do that multiplication. 8 times 8 is 64. Huh?
I thought it'd be 764.
Well, we're about to find out. 0, 16, 5. Nope, it's 784. She's right. So 841. Does that equal 784?
No.
Nope. So it is not a right triangle.
I like it.
All right, this is what's going to be on your quiz. Okay? What's up? It'll be on your test, for sure. All right, we're actually not going to do example 2 today. All right, so we're going to end here, and that'll be it for our lesson on 9.6.